you're sitting in your cubicle or your office, and we're here. Um, and maybe you don't feel comfortable asking questions, but I wish you would. Um, we're in this together. We're just working through these processes together, and could be some good questions you would have that maybe we might not have the answer for, but we could get it for part two later in the day. Um, hey, Patty. I see Patty said hello to me. Um, I guess I'll move over and just share my screen, Kim. You said something about the recording, so we're going to move forward with that now.
I did remember to do it. So, just real quickly, we are recording this session and we'll be recording this afternoon session. And this is for the questions ahead of time. We will be sharing this recording on the IMD website after the training. And then, Lindsay, I believe you're going to share your PowerPoint with us. And there's a couple of documents, and I'm going to try to attach them in the chat feature. So you can download them today. They're just some supplemental documents, but we will also have that information along with the PowerPoint and the recording on the IMD website.
Yes, be glad to share the material with you, Kim, and you could get it to everyone. Everybody seeing my screen okay? Kim?
Yeah, yeah, it's there, Lindsay.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay. All right, we're gonna get started. I brought donuts this morning, but I can't find a way to share them with y'all, so I'm just gonna eat them all. I've already had half of them already, so Kim, I guess I owe y'all some donuts um, in the future when we do it in person. Um, this training's about being prepared for transit managers during emergencies. A lot of moving parts when it comes to emergencies, a lot of moving pieces. It's easy to forget, certain aspects of preparation. And I've been through a few situations that have taught me, uh, some lessons that I overlooked. And so my hopes are is that through this 4 hours, which will be 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, that you'll have you a pad and pencil there and you'll just write down some points. I'm sure most of y'all have already made preparations when it comes to emergencies. I'd be shocked to believe that most transit agencies haven't addressed it in one way or another. To what extent we only find out when we sit through classes like this or we go through an emergency. So I hope that we learn from each other um, concerning areas maybe that we forgot or overlooked, and we can share those today. And Kim will be monitoring the chat, so please feel free to just raise your hand or put a question in there, and we'll get going. Okay. Um, we scheduled this training. Kim, was it? I don't know, 6 weeks back, 2 months back. Um,
Yeah,
but
it's been at least 2 months, well, 2 to 3
yeah,
months ago. We started talking about it anyway.
yeah, and that was before the recent hurricane events that affected North Carolina. And I'm not going to lie to you guys. After the event, I felt a lot of pressure on me. I mean, y'all are really going through a tough situation. Um, your neighbors are, your state is, and Alabama is um, completely understands what you're going through due to our history with hurricanes and flooding. We don't have the snow events that you guys do, so that's like a whole added element that we don't have to deal with here. Um, but our hearts and prayers go out to each and every one of you in your state. And if there's anything that you would like to share in the chat on ways that maybe support one another or help, please let everyone know. That's what this is all about. So um, Again, our hearts and prayers go out for you. I found I found this picture yesterday evening as I was going through um, some research for the class, and I thought this really speaks to the heart of North Carolina. You know, uh, free baby formula and free diapers. Everybody's in this together, um, and you can see that in this picture that they're working together. Looks like there's produce, and they're giving that out free of charge to help people. Guys, just hang in there. It's going to get better. And, like I said, we're praying for y'all. Me and Kim were connecting yesterday. I want to thank Kim. Me and her's been working uh, quite a bit on making sure this presentation was meeting your needs and gave you a helpful webinar um, during these challenging times. She had sent me this yesterday, and I don't know where Banner Elk is at, but I tell you what, after doing a little research, I think I want to go there. It's so beautiful, and the people are so welcoming. But they have snowfall there now. It says 2 or 3 inches overnight. Um, it says just a little dusting in town. If we had 2 or 3 inches here in my neck of the woods, we would shut everything down and stay home. Uh, they don't have that luxury there in Banner Elk, and as you can see, they're overseeing and heading up, spearheading some resources for hurricane relief there from their website and the little snapshot that I took and added in. Um, Kim was mentioning that this just adds to another element during the recovery effort due to the travel and and folks without power. Um, Again, this is tough, but you're a tough people, and I look back at some of the history of some of the events that's happened in North Carolina, and I have a running list we'll go through in just a few minutes that shine a light on some of the events that y'all have overcame in the past, and I know y'all are going to continue to do so.
And
Uh,
so, Lindsay, just
yeah.
just for everybody's benefit, and so Debbie Smith, thanks for clarifying that, because I get my counties confused when we get in those northern Tennessee border counties. Banner Elk is in Avery County, and it is one of the very hard hit counties by Helene. So, thanks, Debbie, for sharing that. We're glad you're here.
Yeah, it looks like a beautiful place, and my daughter's helping me. She just graduated from college earlier in the year, and I told her she needs to start helping me with my work to get a return on my investment. So I sent her some of this stuff that you sent me, Kim, to kind of look over and acclimate her to kind of what this webinar is about. And she said, "Daddy, we need to go there. That looks like a good vacation spot." So she's always thinking
It's a
vacation.
beautiful place, and once they get rebuilt, they're definitely going to need the tourism. So
Yeah, well, I'll be
just keep
sure
it
to.
in mind.
Yeah, I will make that trip. A little bit about myself. Um, Kim, you may be able to chime in on some of the. Kim knows me from some work we did with CTAA over the years with their national rodeo and their organization. So I hope all this is correct, Kim, and true. It's you can correct me if not, but
Well,
I've
I
been in.
haven't talked to Lisa to confirm, but
I got you. Well, let's just don't do that right now. Okay, let me talk to her first. Um,
let her have her
uh,
first cup of coffee.
right, right. I've been in transit for 30 plus years. I just got tired of changing the slide, so I just added the plus symbol there. Um, I worked actively for a transit agency in Baldwin County, Alabama, that you see uh, highlighted there on the Alabama map, um, and served in quite a few roles there. Was a driver for probably 10 years, and then for about another 15 years. I was a operations manager and a supervisor there, and interacted with shop activities and the road. I mean, some of these titles and everything don't mean a whole lot. I know because I know you folks are. If you're in transit, if you go in your office, you probably got 10 hats in there, and you just put one on according to the work that you're doing that day. I mean, I wasn't a fleet manager, but now looking back on it, I was. You know, I wasn't a dispatcher, but looking back on it, I was. In transit, it's all hands on deck. We're always looking for capable, dedicated people. And if you find yourself in that arena, you're going to do a little bit of everything. And I know Kim knows that, having been at the helm of a transit operation. Um, Sometimes they come in and give you the keys, and now you're picking up passengers. So um, that was kind of my experience there. And during that time frame, I developed a lot of training material and did a lot of training. And so it was just kind of a natural transition to, become a consultant and just work in this arena. Um, I've been married for 30 plus years. Again, I put the plus there because sometimes it's hard to keep up with. It's my wife's name's Lisa. I have one daughter, Emily. She's 21. And I have a weenie dog. I should have put a picture in here, but I didn't. Kim has seen it in another presentation. Kim, do you want to speak to the sweetness of my little dog?
Well, Carolyn Freitag shares her dog quite frequently on ropes. So there's a competition between Lindsay and Carolyn now for cutest dog. We may have to take a vote at some point in
Yeah,
time.
we'll have to do that on the next webinar or the next training. Um, that's a little bit about me. During my time with the transit agency there in Baldwin County, Alabama, we dealt with the typical, um, emergencies or events crisis events that you all have dealt with in one way or another. Um, hurricanes, of course, are a biggie for us down south, close to the Gulf. Um, we had the typical fender benders. That one there that you see in that photo was not a typical fender bender. Um, there was a fatality involved in that accident, not associated with the transit agency, but um, the other vehicle that crossed over 2 lanes of traffic or over the median and hit our bus head on. So that was quite an experience. You think you're prepared for things like that, and you find out otherwise once you get into the event itself. And then, tornadoes, which we'll cover that a little bit today, touch on that topic later as we hopefully get through towards the end of part one. I notice, Kim, can you confirm for me that y'all are in Tornado Alley? Did I read that correctly in my research?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have tornado events, but uh, not like they do out in the Midwest and things like that. But there are a number of places in North Carolina that have been affected by tornadoes at some point in time. Yes.
Yeah, and when I say Tornado Alley, I think sometimes that term might be thrown around, but I wasn't sure technically. But we've had some very serious tornado events in our um, state over the last few years or so. The years run together for me, but I I was connected with through work one particular EMA manager who's who lost family members and then was expected to show up, you know, and manage the emergency event, the tornado event there. And so we're not a stranger to that. Um, and we'll touch on that a little bit today as well. And then just your typical difficult passengers. Thankfully, most of the time in the South, we're not dealing with a lot of those cases, but hey, they're there, and the potential to escalate those, if you're not careful, is there as well. I just finished up a training at a urban property, um, where I spent 3 days there and performed de-escalation training for all their employees. They were having specific issues with that in their city and with their services. And so we just brought all of them in groups of six and spent a couple hours with each group and just let them de-stress, talk about some of the things that were going on, that they were dealing with on the front lines. And one thing I noticed, and I'm still kind of coming down off that, I guess you would say, emotional little roller coaster there, because when you're connected with an emergency event, or in this case, they were dealing with quite a few passenger issues, difficult issues, and aggressive behaviors from their customers. When they start talking about that, if you're not careful, um, you yourself start feeling some of that. I got in last night at 9:30, home, finishing up the last shift. Um, that's one thing that we'll add in and sprinkle in as we go through this class, through this training, this webinar, is the emotional impact that these events have. And it's hard to measure those, and it's hard to prepare for those, because we all have our good days and bad days. And I'm not telling you guys nothing. Emergencies don't wait till you're prepared emotionally and all your resources and your ducks are in a row. They're coming, and we got to do our best to be ready. Um, One of the probably the most difficult, stressful events that I assisted with and managing at our agency was Hurricane Ivan back in 2004. Um, it was such a huge system, and there was flooding, there was a lot of evacuation in our areas. We were evacuating, down to the coast, and took some of the passengers, even as far up as 100 or so miles away into different neighboring counties. One of the things I remember about that, I'm reliving it just a little bit right now, was the indecisiveness of the passengers, and the many times the directions that we were receiving from EMA. We'll talk a little bit about that as we go forward, but you would arrive there to, you put your own self at risk to arrive to evacuate a person, and they come out just like during normal transit activities and tell you, I'm not going to be riding the bus today. So it was like, oh no, get on the bus, you don't need to be here. But they had a change of heart, and that was very difficult. And I know that you deal with these situations as well. Um, but it was very, very stressful. Um, and we put ourselves in harm's way throughout the night as we manned the EMA, at least our area of the transportation section of the Emergency Management Agency. And when a call came in, we had to make a decision. Hey, that's out. It's beyond normal transit activities. You're going to have to send in emergency responders and first responders. And those calls have to be made on the spot there, according to the situation, location, and um, the current state of the emergency and the storm. Fine time to tell you now, isn't it, that September is National Preparedness Month. I was talking with Carolyn about this. She was reviewing some of the material to make sure it was sharp. And I want to thank Kevin and Carolyn and Kim for all the assistance that they provided in getting this webinar together. Um, we do need to designate a month, no doubt, but I think that I need to research and look for a national hurricane preparedness. Everybody doesn't deal with hurricanes, but um, it would be good to get ahead of the storm season far enough in some of these events so that you could be prepared for what may come our way. Um, I've added this to my calendar, and I want to do this at home and also make sure that I reach out to some of the agencies in our state, um, and let them know, hey, you need to be prepared. Let's get ready. Um, State of Alabama, when we have a hurricane, it does affect most of our state if that system just, creates a path up through the middle. And as you know, it leaves our neck of the woods and can come up towards a lot of neighboring states. So we need to be prepared. Um, a couple of resources, and again, you guys, probably this is a lot old hat for you, but one of the things I'm hoping that this presentation will do is you could keep it, and um, new directors, maybe new um, employees, new personnel could learn from this and glean from this that are new to transit. You know, um, so knowing to connect with FEMA.gov and that they have, a mobile app is maybe news to some folks. And if you can see here from the screen and from the drop down, you know, um, there's FEMA Live, there's fact sheets, there's a lot of resources there that you could use um, to help build out preparedness at your agency. Same goes for ready.gov. Um, Spending quite a bit of time at this site, uh, reviewing some of their resources, and I am finding that it's very, very helpful. And then, of course, North Carolina Department of Public Safety. This is the list I was referring to. Um, you guys are no stranger to emergency events, to crisis events. As far back as they're tracking here to 2011, the tornado event, and then on up to 2021, Tropical Storm Fred. And I know they'll be adding to this with recent events. Um, there was a lot to learn here, and it's good to stay abreast of that. And I think they're doing a good job with their site.
Lindsay, I have put those links for those three resources in the chat as well.
Wow, you are fast, Kim. Appreciate the help. Um, when we first start off talking about emergency preparedness, um, I think about the mindset that it takes. And, in doing this training, I said over the last few days at that urban property, and they were dealing with um, a lot of difficult and um, maybe a little more than difficult, disruptive might be the word, uh, passengers there in the inner city um, on their fixed routes. Um, we had to reset emotions in our discussions and reset the way we think about being prepared. Many times I believe that we think somebody else will take care of that, and they'll prepare for that. And I get that because, your local EMA lives in that world all the time. And a transit agency, is performing transportation services and interacting with the community every day. And they visit that world during an emergency event. And, so sometimes we may feel, hey, EMA's got this. Uh, and as you guys know, um, transit, I'm going to speak from my experience, okay? And this is, I don't mean this in any way to sound derogatory against local, county government or those that oversee our, you know, services, but many times they're not acquainted with how we operate and the work that we do. They they have to um, be educated many times on the good that we're doing for the community. And many times that only comes up around budget time. And I know one particular commissioner over the years that I worked with, he says, I don't want to even hear from y'all. Uh, I don't want to hear anything bad. Just keep doing what you're doing. I got enough on my plate. So, which maybe I'm doing a marketing class for another state. Maybe sometimes in the future, Kim, we can get on that. But self promoting, you know, your services and using the old trusty iPhone, to do that is really a good tool to keep them abreast of the critical services that you're doing all the time, that you're performing all the time. Uh, but, those interactions don't happen a lot. And we're so busy every day. The only time that we start thinking about emergency preparedness is when we hear those weather reports. I mean, we're very busy people, and there's never an end to the people that we could probably transport or that we could provide services for. The need is great and the resources many times are few. But we have to allocate some time and set it aside for emergency preparedness. Um, I mean, one of the things I was talking to that urban property and their employees about one on one yesterday was them just stop a second and think, just reflect. I said, I really need you to do that. I said, stop and think about how critical and important your services are. I said, you're doing God's work every day, every day. I said, I don't know what your community would do if it was not for you. And many times we don't, well, not many times. It's rare that we get appreciated for that in our community. And, and I'm getting on a little soapbox here, but you folks are very, very, very important to your community and you're appreciated. And I know you don't get told that, but I want to tell you that now, and I want to drop it in every once in a while. And if your services are so critical and as important as you know they are, then we need to be prepared for emergencies so that we can protect our resources, protect our personnel, so that we can get back up to providing those services, ramp back up, and restore service as soon as possible after the emergency event. Sounds like I'm going to take up an offering, Kim, in just a minute, don't
Yeah, yes, yes, Pastor Williams. Let's next topic, please.
it? It's just I really feel strongly about that, because transit's all about relationships, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit too, as it pertains to emergency preparedness. But um, you know, we just don't get told that enough.
No,
As
we
you know,
don't. And all jokes aside, it is very difficult to pour your heart and soul in it and feel like it's never recognized. But I think at the end of the day, the biggest thing is you just have to look back at the people who you truly served, not the people who you're trying to show that you're serving people, but the people who were really served.
oh yes, that's right. I love the way you said that. Yeah, reflect back on it. We got to do that. We got to do that. Okay, introduction to emergency preparedness. This just involves the development of plans. Simply just the development of plans, pulling together resources. It's easier said than done, isn't it, though? If you've ever tried to tackle this, you know that your plan's always changing. And you look back many times and go, oh, I can't believe I forgot that. I cannot believe that I forgot to add that to my plan. So that's what these classes are about, or these webinars. And I'm hoping you have a pad and pencil there and you're writing down some ideas that you could share with us, or maybe we point out something that would be very helpful to you. So, there's emergencies are going to impact services, they're going to impact resources. There's no way around that. But the whole purpose of the plan is to make sure that you're effective, to be able to offer assistance, all hands on deck. Transit has a lot to offer when it comes to emergency services during these types of events to their community. um, and then able to restore those services, which we'll talk a little bit about that today too as we go forward. In crisis events, transit agencies can provide life saving services as well as protect agency personnel and assets if they embrace emergency preparedness planning and adopt the mindset of preparedness that we were talking about earlier. Agency staff have critical responsibilities during emergency events. You know, these events are very stressful. Um, Employees need to be equipped with very clear procedures so that they can follow those and be effective during these events. Without those procedures, without those guidelines and those tracks to run on, um, it's not going to be effective. And in all honesty, it creates more risk. So we we care about our employees, we care about our personnel, and we need to have them prepared mentally and then with a plan so that they can come out of the other side with it safe and sound, and then we can restore our services and begin to build back. It's crucial for transit agents to have a well-developed plan to address their needs, their own specific needs. You know, um, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we go forward too, and understand expectations of local and state authorities. Wow, that's quite a statement. The expectations of local and state authorities. Um, you know, you're pulling a rabbit out of a hat every week, every day, providing services with some of the limited resources and personnel that you have. And then during an emergency event, you know, you're expected to do the same. And I'm not going to get on that right now. We're going to talk about that in a little bit about having setting realistic expectations for your local EMA, first responders, those that are working these emergencies, um, what they can expect from you and what they cannot expect from you. In times of emergencies, coordination between transit agencies, local government, and other stakeholders is very essential. Like I said before, this principle is continuing to prove out to me the more I'm involved in training and providing solutions for different issues for transit agencies and properties. Um, it's all about the relationships. Everything we do in transit is relationship based, or it should be, whether it's our customers, our passengers, our employees, the funders of our service, you name it, it's all about relationships. And so your plan first, we need to keep in mind that, hey, this isn't going to be much different than what I do every single day. Build those relationships. Go to lunch with the MA director. Sit down, have discussions with them, take them for a ride on the bus, buy them donuts, uh, you know, make those connections, thank them for the services they offer. And the whole video aspect that I alluded to, with every once in a while on social media throwing out there maybe a testimonial of what you do, keep these agencies and keep the public and the community aware of the services you offer and that you're there. Many times people don't even know there's a transit agency in their community serving their community until they need it. You know, so it's our responsibility to highlight those things. I had a pastor tell me years ago, he was making a joke, but it was a principle that's true, and I hope I quote him correctly. Um, in old King James English, he said, "If you do not tooteth your own horn, it will not get tooteth it." Is what he said. So many times we have to highlight what we're doing so the public can be aware, and don't be ashamed to do it. I mean, you do great work. Emergency responders, local, state, and federal officials, community leaders, and the news media may see your agency in action for the very first time during a crisis event. This is our opportunity to shine. Now, we knew this, we saw this played out um, with in Louisiana on several occasions during storms where a lot of resources, and I'm mainly referring to school buses that were not called into action or were not utilized during evacuation. And you probably remember those news stories where they helicopters flying over and there's a fleet of school buses out there not being utilized to assist the community during that crisis event during that hurricane. Um, the spotlight is going to be on you. The spotlight is going to be on how you react to these events. Um, and we need to be ready. We need to make sure that we shine during those times because that may be the very first time and the very few times that the community sees us in action. And so be prepared. It's an opportunity. I mean, we can't um, um, prevent a hurricane from coming a certain direction or affecting our communities, but we can make the most for the opportunity of service and also to show how capable we are and the heart of transit, which I could talk about all day long. This gives the opportunity for you to demonstrate your service and your heart for your community. Okay, we're going to talk about preparing our um, team, building a team, emergency preparedness team. I love this photo here. Um, it's from the Lower Regional Transit Authority in Maine, um, and it's it's I don't I guess they're maybe involved in some sort of toy drive, uh, some sort of collaborative effort to provide something to the kids of the community. But I don't see one person there that's not smiling in that photo. And I know that probably the person taking the photo said 1, 2, 3, smile, but they really look genuinely happy together, and they look, um, connected. And I want to say this and this isn't just about emergency preparedness. This is really about uh, just normal operations. You know, it's good to build your team all year long. And you may do that through team building exercises, group lunches, group picnics. Hey, is one thing about transit drivers I know, we love to eat. Transit personnel love to eat. Getting them together and having some camaraderie and connections goes a long ways when we're working with these events and we're having to perform these services. You're going to have a preparedness team. I don't know that you'll use everyone that's at your agency due to their capabilities, training, and availability, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But for the ones you do tap for this preparedness team, start building that team from day one and involve them in certain activities like this, which causes them to have to employ the tools that they'll need during an event, such as communication, patience, coordination, all these things. You can do that now, long before there's an emergency, and you can do it also to um, recognize those that would be most qualified for you to put them in certain positions of authority and in these on these preparedness teams. Um, Tap all areas of service throughout your agency. That's something that was a lesson learned during some of the emergency events that we dealt with at our agency, was that we did not always include, we'll talk about documentation later on, require documentation, but you know, it's good to involve the bookkeepers and the administrators in that area of documentation. The mechanics, hey, they need to get the fleet ready for the event. They also need to make sure that the vehicles are serviced and ready to, go back to normal activities and normal services. Um, I think when we think about emergency events, lots of times we think about the director and we think about the drivers and then a few individuals to coordinate communications. But really, it should be all hands on deck because the emergency event touches every area of your operation. And um, we do need as much assistance and much input from those areas as we can have, and they're the experts on their in their arena. So make sure to include them on your team, and make sure to add them to planning meetings and include them in discussions because sometimes you'll forget something and it'll be a one of those moments where you're like, I can't believe I forgot that because the mechanic brings something very simple to mind that you weren't thinking about. And you're like, I better include them on the team. Their perspective is very valuable. Um, Effective team assignments and emergency events. It's important to consider the skills that will be needed for each team member assignment. Proper placing of team members is crucial for effective emergency management in transit agencies. As a manager, I don't have to tell you that um, each one of your team members have different strengths, and I don't like to use the term strength, weaknesses, but capabilities, I guess you would say. Um, but we need to evaluate that, and we need to be honest about that. And because during an emergency event, um, those areas are going to be highlighted, and we just have to deal with that early on when we're building out our team. Here's some tips when assigning team members. Be sure to consider these traits and characteristics. Training and experience. Um, I've hired hundreds of drivers over the years and personnel at our transit agency over the 28 years I was there. And I found that past work experience was so important. I wanted to know, what did you do in your past employment? Because I wanted to tap into that training, and I also wanted to um, properly place them. If they were bilingual, hey, I needed to know that. Uh, there were many times that got us out of a jam when we were dealing with a difficult customer and we could not, we did not speak their language. Baldwin County, from where I'm from and operated there at the transit agency, we had a lot of migrant workers that would come in, seasonal employees for these resorts down at the beach. And, it was really good if I could hire an employee that had this different skills to communicate with these individuals. And maybe you hire someone that has a background in law enforcement. Maybe they've worked emergencies situations before. Find out what that is and make sure that you properly place them on your team. We can't get around this. Uh, we do not have the luxury of always hiring, a deep pool to choose from when it comes to the applicant pool, you know, in transit. It's not for everybody, and the workforce being what it is and the labor market being what it is. But we still need to keep in mind that if you put someone on your team, they need to be physically able to perform certain functions, such as assist with evacuating passengers, maybe help with bags on and off the vehicle if they're evacuating passengers. Keep that in mind. Communication and coordination. Consider their ability to effectively communicate and share information. And you find this out when they're performing their duties each and every day. Um, I listen in, to radio communications, and you can kind of tell when a driver has a good handle on the importance of these communications and the proper chain of command when it comes to communications. And then you also probably have some funny stories to tell that you could tell where information is probably shared that shouldn't be, funny and stressful situations over the open radio channel. I've got plenty of those over the years, and I would think to myself, oh no, I could not put you in charge of communications, um, just have to be honest and assess your resources and make sure you place people properly. Availability and reliability. I remember a specific employee that was perfect for the schedule they worked um, during normal operations, but during an emergency, they could not um, provide the time and effort that we needed because they had adopted 5 children. So hats off to them for uh, you know that commitment, um, and but they were occupied. You can only imagine. I mean, I have one daughter, and uh, I had to jump through a few hoops, me and my wife, to prepare and look after relatives that we needed to get ready for the storms and ourselves, and then still make myself available for the emergency event and work the EMA. So, you know, think about that, their reliability and availability. And diversity. We hear that word a lot in this day and time. Think about, though, the importance of maybe having um, a female in a certain role when it comes to assisting. Uh, we transported um, to a lot of shelters and during these events, and you know just the communication and the connection that one particular female employee that I remember. Sometimes us guys get tunnel vision and we're just looking at the um, the 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 step processes to get people from point A to point B. And, and I remember this particular female driver and employee reminded me of a couple of considerations that I was not thinking about during that time. Background, cultural understandings. Hey, maybe they can speak a different language that's going to really be needed for some of the, like I said, the seasonal employees that we were evacuating. Consider all this when you're building your team. Skills and expertise, assign team members who possess the needed skills. This may be first aid training, maybe they've overseen evacuations before. Communication systems, maybe they're familiar with those. Temperament. uh, as managers, I know that you have to deal with from time to time difficult situations between customers and passengers and drivers and employees. Um, you want to make sure that the team members have the appropriate temperament, patience, know what to say, cool under stress, um, before you assign them to these team roles. And just because these team members or these personnel do not have maybe these skill sets or these characteristics or traits now, that does not mean that they cannot be trained or that they won't develop them over time. Um, we're always looking for what is it, a diamond in the rough, I guess you would say. Most of the times at my agency, when I would hire an individual, I would look at them and say, hey, one day that person may take my job. One day that person may be our next dispatcher or operations manager. And I would want to provide them the most opportunities to reach those goals if they so chose. So if you don't have um, a, a preparedness team member, build you one, through training and through an investment of time. I want to watch this video and you have to hear me speak the whole time. Um, I love this video because this particular transit driver here, I believe, has the right stuff. I'm not saying do what he did in this situation. Every situation is different, but I love that he was calm, cool, and collected, and he handled this very rare, very unusual, unexpected event, crisis event. He did such a great job, and I know his transit agency's proud of him and his community. But let's just watch this and give me a break, and I'll take a drink of coffee, and you do too.
Today, a UTA bus driver was awarded for his efforts saving a woman from a dog attack. In fact, there were 2 dogs. Fox 13 News reporter Darian DeBrule has her story of survival thanks to a brave bus driver.
This man very quite literally saved my life. Marissa Bowen was on her way home from the grocery store on busy 5400 South when she saw 2 dogs almost get hit by a car. I just thought, oh, it would be awful to lose a pet being hit by a car. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to see if they have tags. Bowen took precautions before approaching the dogs to see if they were friendly. They came up and they were licking my hands, and I scratched their head and I said, oh, good doggies. But the situation quickly turned life-threatening. They started very aggressively biting, and they got me to the ground and were dragging me. In the moment that it was happening, I was on the ground, and one of them was biting my arm and the other one was biting my side. And I remember thinking, if somebody doesn't stop, I'm probably going to die. And that's when Nick pulled up.
I was done with my job. I was just returning to the garage at the end of the night, and I was cruising down the road and saw someone as I was going around the corner, rolling around on the sidewalk, so I pulled over to see if they needed some help, and when I opened the door, I could hear her. UTA released video showing the moment Bowen held out her hand, and Papa swiftly got her to safety on his bus, but the dogs didn't stop. They were biting at the doors and the bumpers and the bike rack and the windshield wiper. These dogs are tearing my bus apart. He helped me get paper towels to help put pressure on the wounds. To help stop the bleeding. And he made calls to all the people who came.
Wow. I would say Nick has the right stuff probably to be on the preparedness team. He stayed calm. The only thing I wish we could clone Nick. That would be pretty cool. That's a rare situation. It's of course I don't know that I've ever had that happen in transit in my 28 years, but it could happen. And you see what your drivers, what your staff, what your mechanics are made of during the small crisis events, the day-to-day situations that you deal with. And that's how you can identify, hey, I think I want to put them on this particular aspect of the preparedness team. Here's one more. And you'll have these videos, and you may want to use them for emergency preparedness for your drivers or for your staff. I love this video and how this particular bus driver handled herself during this situation.
Oh my God. Which is 818 to base. I'm on Fairview Road. I think it's 6 Fairview Road. A transfer truck has just ran off the road and hit me. Everybody on my bus is okay, but we do need an ambulance and the fire trucks. The power lines are down. We cannot move. Okay, I'm gonna cut off my bus, guys. It's safer right here because the power line is down. And I don't know if it's connected to the bus, so just y'all go sit down. Okay, go sit down. Let's keep them on the bus. Come on, hey. We good, buddy. Come on, let's play a game. Come on. Sit down. We good. Let's play a game. Okay? Come on. Hey, hey, you got your phone. Scoot over for me, man. Hey. Oh, yeah, cool beans. Don't sit with you. Show me a game. What kind of game we got on your phone? Show me a game.
I love the way that she handled that with with her passengers, with the kids on the bus. Quite a traumatic event, but then she switches over into caretaker mode after she has already handled the event and very clearly communicated to dispatch to get help on the way. Emergency response plan for employees. We're going to transition in to this for just a moment. Um, Kim has kindly uh, made this available to you guys. It's a preparedness guide that you'll be able to resource. It's just been out there for a while, um, but it's very, very informative and helpful. I've resourced it several times myself. Um, so the QR code here will allow you to link to that, and I'll leave this up for just a moment. Um, and you also will have the link to it in some of the resources that you'll get. What is an emergency response plan? It's a structured framework designed to guide personnel in effectively managing emergency events. It outlines specific procedures for various emergency situations, detailing roles and responsibilities, communication protocols, and evacuation plans and routes. Like I said, these plans can be very extensive, and you don't want to get in the weeds. So, any resources that you can um, utilize to get a head start is good. So, you want to use some of these resources that we're going to provide today. The plan should also include training and drills to ensure employees are familiar with procedures and protocols. One quick point I'll make about training and drills is that many times when we um, complete a training, we get the good feeling, the satisfaction that we've checked that off our box. As we know, it's difficult to plan and schedule trainings because of lack of personnel, time to do it, budget, you name it, all those things. And if we pull one off, we go like, yes, we did it. And we sort of bask in the success of having, completed it and successfully completed it. We need to schedule regular trainings and drills, meaning just because you got one under your belt, go ahead and build out a plan and a schedule to do it a few times a year. It doesn't have to be long, but just to keep your team sharp and aware, do impromptu drills so that they're ready and they can follow these protocols that you have spent so much time preparing and getting ready for emergency events. Having an emergency response plan is crucial for several reasons. It ensures the safety of employees during events. Um, we need to make sure that we're safe and that I mean the last thing you want to do is compound an emergency event with another emergency crisis situation by not giving specific and clear directions and protocols to your employees. Make sure the employees are aware of it. We get that good feeling when we adopt a plan, think, oh, we got the plan in place, we're good. But then how many times have we found that the employees have not acclimated to it, do not know it, do not understand it, um, have not reviewed it? Um, Building the plan's one thing, um, you know, uh, preparing the employees to follow the plan is a totally another um, um, thing altogether. Plans help minimize confusion during event and reduces risk and damages, just to name a few. Um, Develop a personnel policy that designates essential job positions that must report during work emergencies or during emergencies and crisis events. Um, that's one of the things I found at one agency. I was working with them to just advise them on preparing their plan, and um, there was really no obligation for some of the key members to have to come to work during those times. It wasn't in the job descriptions. It wasn't discussed with them. It wasn't mentioned during the interview process or when they were onboarded in the new hire training that hey, if these things happen, we're going to need you on board. And so several of the employees, just said, well, I can't do that. I have other responsibilities or I don't feel comfortable and I'm not up to that. So what are you going to do when you need to man um, certain aspects of your operation and your employees have not been informed or required to report during those times? It's going to put you in a difficult situation. Here's some important considerations um, when you're preparing these plans. Who's going to pre-position the vehicles and stage them for emergency evacuations and get them prepared? Um, simple things such as where will the keys be located? Um, in the vehicles? How will we how will we schedule um, shift changes during these evacuations or these events? Where will you meet? Is it safe to meet there? Um, just a restroom facility during these times for the personnel that are performing the evacuations. Who's charging up the radios? I could go on and on and on about these little areas, things that can fall through the cracks if you're not careful and you don't have a plan. Emergency call up protocols for mobilizing staff. Who's going to do that? Who you going to call? Who's responsible to reach who? How to get instructions to employees related to work. Um, how to tell them to shelter in place or engage evacuation plans. Activations of internal emergency dispatcher call center operations, implementation of customer communication procedures, and resource tracking and management. That resource tracking and management is going to be very critical as you gather all the information for the required documentation at after the event. So you need someone that's dedicated to that during the time to track what resources you're using, any damage, so that right when you get the event is over and you're trying to restore services, you can get a status update of can we get those dialysis patients to dialysis Monday morning? Uh, all those different services that are so critical that are really little mini potential emergencies that you handle every single day during normal operations. Uh, that person can be designated to oversee resources and manage those to make sure that they're ready and everything's staged to get back to normal operation. You need to maintain a master contact list for employees. Have that updated regularly. Of course, I'm going to say back in the day, um, and probably shouldn't even use the term back in the day because some of our old ways of doing things we don't need to set those aside because we have new and improved gadgets and electronic ways of communication. It's hard to replace the old master list on the magnet that's on the refrigerator at home. It's one of those things that you always fall back to, but you have to have it updated, and you need to designate somebody to update it regularly, and to make sure that you're going to be able to effectively communicate and connect with the emergency personnel. Assign a single person for that. If everybody does it, as you know, in management, probably nobody does it. We need to give it to a person that's very detail oriented and make sure that they own that and they keep that updated. Maybe you're asking yourself this question now: who would be that person at my agency? So I hope you are asking that, and I hope you write that down on your little notepad there. Establish phone numbers for employees to call for information concerning emergency operations. Um, they need to know where they need to report, how they need to report, if they need to report during an emergency event, and also when they need to report back to normal operations, because everyone might not be on your emergency preparedness team. And that person that you use to man that phone for that, multi-use them, because many times they're sitting there, maybe with nothing to do except waiting for employees to reach out. If they're qualified and coordinated enough and have the skills to be able to be trusted to do this, then maybe they can monitor the weather radio and also give some up to date weather information. Multitask. Use these people because you need every aspect of your operation covered during these times. Determine realistically how long it would take. This is just a simple thing that we found out, when we dealt with these hurricane events. How long is it going to take for that employee to get there when we need them? Do they live in the nearby county? Um, one particular dispatcher that we greatly depended on, she lived in a area that was prone to flooding, and there was one way in and one way out to that little community. That's probably changed now. I think the area still floods, but I think there's another access road that's been developed. But during that time, uh, she was of no use. We tried everything we could to let her operate from home, during these times and provide dispatch coordination, but that didn't even work because of the impact of some of the events. So you got to think about these things. Don't let your key person, your star player, um, you know, get them out someplace stranded, or they live in an area that you can't use them and you've put all your eggs in that basket. What other considerations might prevent staff from responding? Well, one is especially hurricane preparation. If they do not keep preparedness top of mind at home, then when you ask them or require them to come and report for duty, I've been told this several times, many times over the years. Well, let me get things ready at home, and then I'll be right there. Um, we need to always keep personal preparedness, employee preparedness top of mind too, and let so that they are always prepared because they're desperately needed during these events. And I'm going to skip through this real quick. This won't take about 2 or 3 slides, but this does connect with the family emergency plans. I think, one of the things that we can do to prepare our team is make sure that we um, relay the importance of them being prepared at home, and, that they're not worried about their loved ones at home. I fortunately, thank the Lord, my brother, we've lived next door to each other over the years. He was in the National Guard for a number of years. And when I would come in off an event or something, or before the event started, with the plans, I'd get home and he already had my windows covered and everything prepared. Oh, I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. Matter of fact, I need to get on the phone later today and tell him I appreciate that. Um, so they can enlist the help of other family members, maybe, or just prepare ahead of time. Um, Help them develop a family emergency plan. These plans are critical uh, to make sure that they can show up for work and not be divided in their attention because they know their family's taken care of. And say you'll get this PowerPoint, so you'll be able to see these. And I'm going to skip ahead through some of these. It'll be available to you for time purposes. I want to make sure we get to where we need to and finish the sections for part one. Um, there's some more resources: American Red Cross, FEMA, National Transit Institute, the TCRP Report 160, a Paratransit Emergency Preparedness and Operations Handbook. That has a lot of resources on family emergency plans as well. It's an older publication, but some of these things are tried and true, and we don't need to reinvent the wheel, So reach out and utilize those services and make them available to your team. Employees can share in the responsibility of providing family emergency plan resources, or it can be a shared responsibility. That should say employers can share in that responsibility. Um, you can make it their responsibility to dig up these resources, or you can just take a few hours, put together a little package, and give it to all the employees and say, I care about you. Your community's depending on you. Uh, Please be prepared personally so that we can provide these services to the community when we're called into action. Emergency management partners. Um, Relationships. I said that to begin with, and that's going to be one of the key ingredients um, of this section as well. If there's one thing transit managers know, and how they should know, and if you don't know it and you're new to transit, you're going to learn it. That's how to build relationships and the importance of relationships and providing the services that we provide each day. Partnering with local law enforcement, emergency services can be beneficial for emergency management. Here's a few reasons why. If you partner with local law enforcement emergency services, they have valuable specialized training, knowledge, and resources that you can tap into for emergency response. Uh, there it's an endless, bottomless, almost resource there. These folks are living in that world all the time. We're just visiting it, and they can share their expertise and resources. Remember earlier I talked about when you're building your preparedness team, um, you may see a diamond in the rough that needs an investment of training and expertise. um, Send them over to some of these law enforcement events where they're performing these trainings. Get in touch with management there, those that oversee those events, and say, hey, I'm sending over this guy. I'm wanting to use him in some of these events, but I want to make sure he's got a good grasp on this particular aspect of providing service. And many times they'll be glad to share that knowledge with them. And when they're at the trainings, what are they doing? They're building relationships on top of that. I'll help you, you help me kind of stuff is really good. I will a little funny. It's funny and not funny. In transit, I did a lot of hiring, and if you're working in transit, you're not just going to do a lot of hiring, you're going to do a lot of recruiting because the applicant pool is not always what we would like it to be. Um, I've said many a prayer, Lord, send me the right person for this job. And I would have to put what I've heard said feet to those prayers and get out in the community. I mean, when I was in, if I'm eating lunch and the person serving me is doing an outstanding job, I'll steal them in a minute. I mean, I'll say, do you like working here? Nope, I don't. Well, call me. There was one particular lady that I recruited, um, that worked in the community at uh, a, a business called Claire's. They, jewelry. My, my daughter went there quite a bit, and she would always brag on her. And I went there and I saw her and how she was doing her job, and I just said, I'm going to steal her away. So I offered her a position. She came and she was a driver for about 6 or 8 months. Management took her away from me and moved her up in the office, and that was not a good move because she got into the office with those special skills and that attitude and that positive attitude and approach to work. And an emergency event came along, and they sent her to the EMA. What do you think happened when the EMA worked with her? They offered her a job, and then she left the transit agency. And she still works for the local EMA now. She's been there about 10 years, and she's a great resource. Sometimes during her anniversary for her county job, she'll send me a picture of herself driving the bus back in the day. She says thank you for the opportunity, but I never let them forget that they stole that person from me. So when you send them over, be careful. You know, some of your star players, they might want them over there. Um, Timely and coordinated response. When you connect with law enforcement and local emergency response agencies, um, it enables a more coordinated and timely response. You already know these people, you have a relationship with them, you see how they operate and how they work because you're involved in their drills and their training, and then you know how to provide better service during that time too and coordinate yourself with them. Enhance safety and security. They're going to look out after you, during these events. Um, you come under their wing, and these relationships, they start looking after you and can provide that extra attention that you may need during that event. Training and preparedness, you can collaborate with them, as we said before, and and participate in their joint, conduct joint training exercises and drills. Bring some of the first responders over them, and let them have a tour on one of your vehicles to see where the evacuation points are during the year, and build those relationships. And something that emergency response personnel and transit personnel have in common: they like to eat. We like to eat. So you can always bring them in for a luncheon or something and say, hey, we just wanted to connect with you and spend some time with you, for relations, to build those relationships. And it also helps with community engagement, because when transit is seen working with first responders, it builds confidence in the community that these services are not disconnected. There's a continuity to what you're providing. Emergency management partners can include local emergency management agencies, city and county law enforcement, first responders, emergency response teams, city and rural fire departments, Red Cross, and other emergency response organizations. Nursing homes, um, you need to coordinate with them, because you're probably going to be the one that's providing um, some of these evacuation services during these critical times. I've attended several and been a part of several active shooter events that were conducted at nursing homes, um, uh, and was able to really build relationships there during those times. Local hospital coordinators, emergency services, get out in the community and make these connections. Um, your resources are not never ending. You have limited capabilities and resources. Your local EMA needs to understand what you're capable of, what you can do, and what you can't do. Um, they need a realistic understanding of what your resources are and capabilities are. You don't want to get into an emergency event and crisis, and they believe that you have X number of vehicles and personnel, and you don't. Uh, and build out during those times and those discussions, build out a capabilities uh, document of sorts that's simple, and let them know this is what we can do, this is what we can't do. Once wind speeds reach this, we can't help. Um, we won't be able to, um, um, navigate these areas because of our vehicles, or limitations of our vehicles. Um, if these areas are flood, prone to flooding, we you don't want to put them in a bad spot, and you don't want to underperform in a situation because they thought you were capable of doing more than you could. Um, I'm going to kind of go through this kind of quick, but it's common for transit agencies to have a seat at the EOC um, in urban and suburban areas. So get connected there. Um, they had us cot in a little room for us to take breaks, take naps during the events, and had us a desk and communication lines coming straight in there from our office. So you want to set those things up prior to. In rural and tribal areas, transit operators often do not have a formal role at their local emergency or operations office. So you sometimes, you need to be assertive in working with local officials to create an emergency transportation operations plan. Again, transit's on the fringe out there, and they don't hear a lot of about us until there's a problem or there's an emergency. We're just hitting home runs all day long, but they're not even at the game, so they don't see it. Um, so sometimes you need to be assertive in getting in there and muscling in and saying, hey, we want to be at the table. We want to be a part of this. And in rural and tribal areas, and there's more boundaries built there, and they're more They operate self-sufficient, so you would need to build those relationships way prior to, and to be effective during these events. Designate a representative from your agency to interface with emergency operations. Generally, that's the director, but during these events, 24/7, and this may last, oh, it's going to last a long time, a number of days. The director cannot be the face of that the entire time. So you need to conduct trainings for ever who would speak for the agency so that they don't misspeak to the media, uh, and they actually represent the agency in the way that your director or you as a manager will want the agency represented. Start thinking about who could be that person. Transit vehicles may be commandeered during such events by the National Guard or other emergency personnel services. Some concerns just to consider, because these discussions need to be had, is drivers understand the proper use of the equipment. So you need to probably prepare some kind of quick orientation or training, and then you could do this ahead of time. But again, uh, these first responders are not going to live in the world of transit, so they're not going to really understand how to operate this equipment. Some of it they will, some of it they won't, especially the lift. Um, and that's something you need to find some kind of way to address. Um, you need to address legal and insurance liability concerning the operation of your vehicles by non-employees before the emergency. If they're using the vehicle and they're commandeering the vehicle, how does your funders of the service feel about that, and what steps do you need to put in place prior to, and understandings prior to? And a memorandum of understanding, which I will get that copy to Kim, that she can get to you guys, just a template, or it's one I have available, which is, can be utilized, very, very handy, that you can use for your local nursing home, anyone that you're coordinating with and working with, to say, hey, this is what we can do, this is what we can't do. We're not taking responsibility for this, and these particular areas. And if you coordinate with us, you're going to have to be responsible for this or that. And that's concerning insurance and liability, reducing the liability, and having a good understanding prior to the event. Do not commit transit resources to emergency management or enter into contracts to assist with evacuated residents' care without having planning meetings with all key stakeholders to prioritize potential competing requests. Everybody's going to want transit then. And so you need to be able to prioritize who gets what, when, and how long they get it. Not to mention that in the back of your mind as a transit manager, you're just not thinking about the event. You're thinking about restoring services after the event. And so, yeah, you can have me for this length of time, but once the event, uh, passes, and at a certain point, I've got to start focusing on providing services back to my community, getting these people to dialysis, getting them to the grocery store, all the normal activities that we do. And you don't want to be overextended and not being able to focus in these areas. Work with emergency management to establish current realistic expectations. We talked about that. Determine who will control dispatch of your vehicles, your agency, or at the will it be agency representative, or will it be someone from the EOC?
Lindsay,
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to let you know, and to let everybody that's on the webinar know, I did just post a link to the North Carolina General Statute. It's 166A, which is the North Carolina Emergency Management Act. So there are obviously very defined roles in that Emergency Management Act. So if you have any questions about, who plays what role where, then that's a good resource to go to as well.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's very, very important, and I appreciate you doing that, Kim. Um, Some more considerations to make is many individuals require life-saving treatments even during emergency situations. Your agency may be asked to support individuals who need to get from shelters to other locations, such as kidney dialysis or cancer treatments. I kind of laugh at that a little bit. Yeah, you know that. You do it every day. You're already providing life-saving treatments, transportation to treatments every day. So, yeah, we need to make them aware of that, and your plan needs to be very, very transparent to these agencies and organizations, so they know, hey, this is during a non-emergency. We're performing day to day, almost like emergency transportation trips. Because if you didn't provide those, hey, you're talking about a very, very desperate and dire situation for your customers on a daily basis. Um, Training and drills, emergency preparedness training and drills are valuable for transit drivers and staff. They equip them with the knowledge, skills, and confidence to handle emergencies effectively. We know this. That's why you have taken the time to come to this webinar, is because you know the importance of training and drills, and you're wanting to put together a plan for your agency to be effective during these crisis events. Regular drills help drivers. Scheduled drills regularly helps them practice their response, making them better prepared to make quick decisions in high stress situations. Invest in these programs, and to um, build your team and keep your team prepared for upcoming events. Training topics, just responsibilities. Um, during the training, you had to have breakout sessions. You might do a training that covers um, everything for all aspects of 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 an overview of it. But then you need to break out maybe your communications team. You need to break out your drivers into an individual team. Break out your mechanics and let them start brainstorming and addressing areas of concern for them. Report to work expectations. It doesn't hurt. How many times you ever been told this as a manager? I was never told that, but many times in your meetings you have said, "Hey, this is an expectation for staff." So if whatever expectation that might be, um, make sure that you regularly inform them during training exercises and events that, hey, we're doing this because I'm investing in you and I have an expectation that you're going to be here and me get a return on this training and investment that I have in you. Preparing, pre-positioning, and staging vehicles. We talked about that earlier. Who's going to do that? How they're going to do that? Training ahead of time. You don't want no bumping into each other when the event is in full swing. Emergency dispatching. Get with your dispatchers' communication systems during emergencies. Make sure they're working and they know how to work those systems. Vehicle controls and operations. Meeting customer emergency transportation needs, and emergency protocols for transportation passengers and pets. Something we may not think about, pets. Um, let's keep that in mind when we're putting together our emergency protocols. So many times a person won't evacuate if they can't bring their pet. Um, so address that. Customer communication procedures, surge capacity, sustaining ongoing emergency operations. Can your staff withstand it for that length of time? Do you have backup? Do you have break, integrated in so that they can recharge? Interacting with emergency management and first responders, regular service shutdowns. These are training topics that we can talk about in your training times. Resource tracking and management, record keeping and documentation requirements. Um, Prioritizing passenger safety. Hey, we do this all the time. Um, when we're in a crisis event, we just need to make sure that we stick to the same safety protocols and build out new ones. Um, Emotions will be high, and practice makes perfect. So that's part of the training and drills, and you want to make sure that your drivers know what's expected, what they can and can't do, and the right ways to do it safely. Um, like we said, provide regular training. Consistent training will sharpen skills and reduce liability. Um, I don't. At this, me and Kim was talking about this. Alabama's contracted with me to build out some resources, which would be. I'm really excited about this. Say a prayer for me that I do it adequately as I should. But these are the five tools on board the transit vehicle that drivers, per the ADA, are required to be trained to proficiency in. And one of the brainstorming meetings, planning meetings I had with our Department of Transportation was, are we meeting that training to proficiency standard? So I came up with this idea to create videos for all five of these that would be short, to the point, an overview of the first aid kit, bloodborne, fire extinguisher triangles, and glass break seatbelt cutter tool, and then create a QR code and put it in the vehicle so that these drivers during downtime, are they familiarizing themselves with the vehicle, they can watch these videos on board the vehicle without having to go to a specialized training for this. You might be able to take that concept over to some of the drills and training that you do, um, and just do short, quick training sessions. Do it with the iPhone. Create a QR code and position it where, send it out in a link, or send a link and cover it that way. But that's something I'm getting into first of the year, and maybe that's something that we can I can work with Kim on to provide some more resources for emergency management when we go forward. Um, Regularly inspect emergency equipment, ensure that it's in good working condition. Doesn't matter if your driver knows how to use the fire extinguisher if it's not charged, or it's out of date, so to speak, and and it's not working as it should. Train your drivers concerning the importance of maintaining that equipment, inspecting that equipment, and how to use that equipment. Communication systems. Communication's key during an emergency. Um, how are we going to communicate, and do they know how to use the equipment? This will keep your passengers safe and keep your driver safe too. Um, Regularly update your procedures, review and update safety protocols and procedures. I designate a person that they had that procedure book on their desk, and they were constantly, had it before them, and they could write a little sticky note, stick it in there. And then once every month, every 6 weeks, ever what, get together with key personnel and say, hey, this came up in our normal day-to-day activities, and I got to thinking, hey, if if we didn't have this covered, this would be a chink in our armor during an emergency event. Okay, we're getting into specific uh, emergency types now. These specific types were chosen by the group to cover, um, and so there's a limitless, unfortunately, um, amount of emergency types that we could deal with, but we don't have the time for that. One thing you will recognize is, regardless of the event, many of the protocols and many of the challenges are the same. Many of the solutions and many of the problems remain the same. So you can take lessons learned from a hurricane event and apply that also to a snow and ice event or a flash flooding event, which is the three topics. Um, um, the tornado event, flash flooding. We'll be covering those today. You can take those same lessons and apply those to any event. Communications is going to be key no matter what event. Having your team prepared is going to be key no matter what event. So I'll sound like a broken record as we go through, but forgive me. That's just it just all interconnects. So we have major and minor emergencies. Thank the Lord we don't deal with ongoing major emergencies. Um, but the minor emergencies, the minor events prepare us for the major events. So we need to keep that in mind. How did we communicate? What was our attitude towards the emergency? Did we cover all our bases? Did we follow our protocols? A minor emergency will expose those areas and show you those areas that you need to shore up and build out before the major emergency. Here's some that is becoming somewhat frequent in some of our bigger cities that I deal with when I'm talking about emergency response and preparedness to especially urban properties. Um, Civil unrest, protests, riots, these can disrupt transit agencies and cause route closures, disruptions. Uh, we have to deviate or change routes during these times. Collaborating with local law enforcement to help build out relationships for these types of events. I pray that you don't deal with these a lot. I was just in a city recently where there was a protest going on. I was doing a training there. It didn't have anything to do with emergency preparedness, but it was in the air. You could feel it. And I really felt for the transportation services in that area and the drivers, because, hey, that's a whole nother animal altogether. We're not used to dealing with that in some of our rural areas, but we need to acquaint ourselves with it. Um, let's watch this video and that kind of highlights some of the issues that this particular agency dealt with in Richmond concerning civil unrest.
Greg, we are at Broad and Belvedere Street. This is just one of the locations where protests turned violent overnight. Here at this particular location, a GRTC Pulse bus was burned during this protest, and you can see the damage to this bus here this morning. You can see the windows are gone. You can also see that this bus has been littered with graffiti, and that police are still out here on scene, as well as emergency crews working to get this all cleaned up. A portion of Broad still blocked off this morning, but I do want to take you straight to this video of this bus fully engulfed overnight. More than 100 protesters were surrounding this bus as this all unfolded. Now, a spokesperson for GRTC tells us it's a total loss and that GRTC plans to delay their services until 9 this morning, and they may even have to cancel them altogether for the safety of their staff and employees and customers. Now, the protesters joined other similar demonstrations that have happened around the nation overnight. The protests started out peacefully in Monroe Park around 8:30. Protesters were marching around the city. They marched to City Hall and the Capitol. But around 11, that is when calls came in for the destruction at the Richmond Police Headquarters. And you can see in this video, our crews captured some of this destruction. There was a window that was shattered out there at the Richmond Police Headquarters. There was also graffiti on the building as well, and a car outside of Richmond Police Headquarters was lit on fire. Now, support was brought in from Henrico County. There was a SWAT team and police helicopters circling around. So again, quite a chaotic scene overnight.
So you can see that would be something that I pray that you're not dealing with any regularity, but we do need to keep that in mind. Assaults on drivers, they've been steadily increasing over the years. I'm part of a Facebook page, the with some transit drivers. I think it's called Transit Drivers Worldwide or something like that. But I found that their posts were very interesting, and I wanted to be part of that group. They wouldn't even let me in unless I proved I was a transit driver. I can't remember what they asked me. They didn't want any management or anything involved. So I had to send some pictures of me driving the bus or something, but they was very clear. They just wanted it to be transit drivers. And I see things like this pop up on their posts. It's very sad. Everyone, please send out a prayer as one of our operators here in LA was stabbed at least 11 times by a passenger. We have to prepare for these things. Um, I pray we're not dealing with them on a regular basis, but our drivers need to know that we have their back enough to have these types of trainings to let them know what's on our radar. Um, well, this you'll have this information, so I'm going to skip through some of the root causes and factors that create these events. Acts of terrorism, we need to be prepared for those. Suspicious behaviors. Hurricanes, we're not going to drill down on that because I think you've heard enough about hurricanes over the last number of weeks, and out of sensitivity for you guys, um, we're going to focus on some other events, as I know that this will become a ongoing topic going forward. I think Kim has mentioned possibly next year in June or around that time, maybe um, facilitating a larger emergency preparedness event, that some of these things will be addressed with some solutions that your agencies and communities in North Carolina were able to bring to the table during this trying time. Kim, do you want to mention anything about that, or I don't want to overlook that?
Um, just the fact, Lindsay, like you talked about, we first of all had hurricanes in here and have tried to be much more sensitive about it because there's still so much going on after Helene here. Um, but the other side to this is once we get through it, I do believe there are going to be some incredible lessons learned, some amazing stories from transit systems, and I would love to bring that all together next year. Once people have had time to process and things are not going to be back to normal in a year, but hopefully um, you will have had time to get those that have been so seriously impacted have time to get your heads wrapped around what has happened and how you were involved in the community. And I believe we have an opportunity for some really good stories to come out of that. So, and I think there's some opportunity about agency vehicle sharing and or vehicles going from one agency to another for those that lost vehicles or needed something differently. So, um, like I said, so don't think it's that we're ignoring the fact that there was just this epic event in North Carolina. We just want to make sure lots of you are still living the event, and we want to come back and give the goods, the good, the bad, and the ugly of the stories and what communities can do in the event that another event like this should happen somewhere in North Carolina again. Hopefully, it won't be for another 1,000 years, but certainly in preparation for something.
Yeah, I love that idea. Um, no matter where I go, no matter where I travel, if I'm at transit events, it doesn't matter if the transit uh, person is from California, New York, Alabama, Mississippi, Texas. I hear different accents, but they're all laughing and connecting, and they all have the same kind of stories. There's a camaraderie among transit people, for lack of a better term, that is hard to um, understand unless you've been part of it. And I
And I know
feel like
we're kind of running short on time, Lindsay. So I don't mean to cut you off, but
we're,
certainly want you guys to make sure that all this information gets anything you have questions or stories about to be sure and let us know.
yeah, I'm believing that at the event next year there'll be a lot of sharing. So I think that's going to be great. Um, I did see through some of the messages, Kim, that Kevin later on would need to speak to the documentation a little earlier. Please don't let me um, miss that opportunity. So we're just going to ease forward if that's okay with you. How much more time do we have? Um,
It's 10 minutes till right now. I can't tell you it's 10 minutes till 11 because that doesn't mean anything to you because of your time. So you have 10
right.
minutes left. You in case you didn't know, Lindsay is in Alabama. He talked about it, and that's where he is today. So all week we've had to say, 9 o'clock your time, my time, 8 o'clock your time. So we have to make sure that we are right. So you got about 9 minutes left, Lindsay, and I was hoping we might have some time for if anybody had any questions or comments. So I don't know if you want to finish going through these, because you said a lot of it's the lessons are basically, and preparedness there's a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah, we can share some of this when we come back to part two. So this is a perfect spot probably to do that, because the three types of events that we're going to get into when we come back in part two would be tornado events, flooding, which I'm on, a little bit of focus on flash flooding, you know, and snow and ice, which was the subjects, the major emergency types that we chose to hopefully kind of give some examples of how to navigate those. So yeah, I mean, I would be glad to just go ahead and do that now, um, Kim, and just answer a few questions or see if there's anyone that has any questions or comments. Um, I would love to hear somebody else's voice other than mine.
And I know they'd rather hear anybody's voice other than mine sometimes. So
Don't say that.
there are 44 people on here, and I know somebody's got a story they want to share, a question they want to ask, something about, is there another resource for something? Please feel free to go ahead and raise your hand so we don't have people speaking over each other, and then I'll be glad to call your name, and then you can unmute yourself. But we've got about 8 minutes, and all of our time is precious. But I would really, really love to get at least some feedback on this. Is this, and it's been a lot. Lindsay's given us a lot to think about. I think the planning and planning your team is probably, just thinking back as a transit director, that was always important to me, and we tried to make sure every year that we had a plan of who was going to be driving what vehicles or whatever. But there may be some of you who have set your team up differently and have really good stories about that or have questions about it. So I'm going to be quiet for now, and please raise your hand. I keep talking because I don't see any hands raised, but I know somebody has
Patty,
a story they want to share.
yeah, Patty needs to share something. Come on, Patty, where are you at? Oh, there she is.
Um, is she still on? She had a board meeting this morning, so I wasn't
Oh,
sure
she's
she was
still
on
on.
there.
If she's on here, on here.
Yeah, she
Um,
may have left it on there. But now Tim and
I'm
Randy.
here, Kim.
Oh, there
I'm
you
here.
are.
I'm trying to unmute.
hey, Pat.
Yeah, I was only gone for about 30 minutes, but I popped back in. So yeah, it's been an adventure here. And we have not dealt with near the emergency with this hurricane that our neighboring counties have, but we've been able to provide a lot of support to those counties as well as to our emergency services, because we're a 4 county area system. And so we deal with our cities and our counties in those 4 counties. One of the things and you may have talked about this when I stepped out, but that I think is so important is working with your local emergency planning committees in each county. Be a part of that, be a team member as a part of that. Let those folks know what you do and what you can do for them in an emergency. And I'm a member of all 4 of the LEPCs in our communities.
You want to talk
However,
about, Patty, talk about what the LEPC is?
the
So some
local
people may
emergency
not.
plan, yeah, the local emergency planning committee is your LEPC. It's run usually by your emergency management or by maybe your fire marshal's office or something like that. So reach out to your emergency management folks in your county and tell them, if you're not a part of that, that you want to be a part of that team. They meet anywhere from monthly to quarterly to yearly, depending on which area you're in, and you get to be a part of all of the community emergencies that go on in your area, and you can tell them what you do and what you can do for them. However, even with being so active in those meetings, the thing that I found was sometimes those coordinators that we provided the information to didn't pass it on to your EOCs. So stay active with your counties, bug them a little bit, remind them what you can do, because I got a call and they're like, oh, can you do this? And I'm like, we can do this and we can do these things. And they're like, oh, they didn't pass that on to us, because you want to make sure that they know you're available. Right now, we're still doing transportation from shelters. There's a state shelter located in one of our counties. And so we're still doing transportation from shelters. And what they need to know is that once these folks get into the shelters, they still need to get to Walmart. They still need to get to doctor's appointments. They still need, it's not just getting them to the shelter. It's still that way of life after you're in the shelter. Their world's already disrupted. Make it as normal as you can by providing that transportation. And if you're able to do free fares for those folks, then do that and write that off to your emergency management, FEMA, whatever you're getting a reimbursement back from your county or whoever. It's a very small thing that means a lot to them.
I love
So
that.
do you work with your LEPCs in your area, Lindsay?
I do not. That's I'm writing that down now as something I need to probably connect with and do. But I'm not actively involved in a transit agency as far as their preparedness planning. I may come in and do some assistance, but I don't participate in their day to day like I used to. Let's put it that way.
hmm and it's just helpful to be able to talk about like the day-to-day emergencies. If there's a fire at a nursing home or something like that, we've got those accessible vehicles, but we don't contract directly with them. In North Carolina, they're supposed to have their own transportation, but emergency management calls us. Now we can become involved and take your vehicles that can assist with getting some of these folks who need transports for wheelchairs and things of that nature.
And we've got, thank you, Patty. We've got Patrick Flanagan with Carteret. You want to unmute yourself, Patrick?
Yeah, thank you. I actually wanted to ask Patty a question about what she just said. When you're doing that transportation from the shelters while the people are being housed there, are you setting that up as like a shuttle service, or are you asking the people in the shelter to make reservations for transportation? How are you doing that?
So, Patrick, it depends on what your shelter needs are. If you've got a shelter that's within your fixed route and they can just step out and jump onto the fixed route or onto your deviated flex routes, that type of thing, that's great. And you could do a pass for them if you wanted to do that. But if not, we've worked with the emergency centers and then also with the shelter directly to let them know to call us if they have someone who needs transportation, and then they call our office and just make an appointment. We're offering some same day service for those folks. I see
Any
Patrick's
other?
response was thank you, Kim.
Yeah,
So
he
he's
said
probably
thanks. That was a great question, Patrick. There's in an emergency situation and you're kind of responding like now that they've had some time to breathe and move some of these people, you just got to get creative in how you do it in the small systems. And I know I saw Debbie Smith was on here from Avery, and I think I saw Ashe County on here too. And they're probably doing some very different things with their service right now, and hopefully they'll be able to share with us at some point in time when they're comfortable with that. Because I am sure that they have changed business and the way they've had to do business and the way they have to respond. I know Mitchell County has lost a number of vehicles, and I'm sure they're having to back up and punt a little bit. And they've actually got a Facebook page, and I've been watching their posts, and they're really good about keeping people informed about what's going on. And of course, so and the other thing is if you don't have the cell service and the internet like the first few days, it makes it really difficult. And Patty, did you want to follow up?
I did, Kim. I just wanted to add one more thing, and that's that if you're lucky that your service wasn't impacted as harshly as your neighboring counties in an emergency, reach out to offer to help them. Don't wait for the state to call you and say, hey, can you go do this? Reach out and offer your assistance. And right now we'd like to offer that to Avery or Mitchell or anyone else that we can assist with, because we do Alexander, Burke, Caldwell, and Catawba here. And we're not that far from you guys. So if you need our help, please give us a call.
All right. Unless somebody else has something else they'd like to share or a question, Lindsay, it's right now 11 o'clock our time. So this 2 hours has flown by very quickly, and we will plan on being back here at 2. You should have a different link to sign in. I'm sorry, it's just the way that you have to set it up in Teams. I apologize that you had to register twice and you have to find a different link. If for some reason you can't find your link or you have an issue, I've noticed a couple of people did reach out to me this morning. So please email me if you do not have your access. Or you can, I think the registration's still open if you need to go in and register because you did not register for both classes. Lindsay, you want to wrap it up with that
Yeah.
then?
I just want to say I'll have cookies when y'all come back.
Go along with the donuts from this morning. Thanks, Lindsay.
Right.
It's a good thing we're not paying him for his comedy act, isn't it? So,
Right. Same old
all
jokes.
right. Everyone enjoy the next few hours. Get you some lunch. Take care of all the fires that have occurred during the 2 hours you have been on here. And we will meet back at 2 p.m. Eastern time. That's 1 o'clock your time, Lindsay.
Yes,
And we will talk some more about emergency preparedness this afternoon.
Thanks. Look forward to seeing y'all.
Kim,
Kevin,
are you having lunch delivered to everyone, Kim?
Electronically, I'm going to use that same, that same link that Lindsay had, and that he was going to send donuts out on.
That works.
And I'm gonna bill DOT for it.
Go ahead. Good luck. Good luck with that. Let me know how it works out.
Yeah. I'll let you know how that works out for me. So, all right, everyone, have a good lunch break, and we'll be back at 2.
Thank you.